Hi. Hi, this is
Hi.
Tom Shanahan. I'm the author of Spiritual Adrenaline, a lifestyle plan to strengthen and nourish your recovery. And I'm really, really honored to be joined today by Abby Bernard, who is a fellow author of the 12 Steps of Sober Leisure, but also someone I know personally. Abby is a certified recreational therapist, and she was the therapist at the facility, Conifer Park, where I went to rehab 9 years ago. And so, thank you very much, personally, Abby, for the good work that you did in my case and so many others. And thank you for joining me. As I said, you are the author of the 12 Steps of Sober Leisure. You can hold it up there. This is an incredibly good book that really helps people uh, adjust or change from the life of active addiction, where fun was getting high or doing breaking the law and doing those things, to finding sustainable ways to and healthy ways to find happiness in the longer term. So let's just start with the book and what people can expect if they were to purchase the book. Tell me a little bit about what 12 Steps to Sober Leisure is about.
12 Steps to Sober Leisure is a reworking of the 12 steps of AA. I've taken each step and I've translated it to interject the concept of leisure and recreation in recovery. So, for example, the first step, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives have become unmanageable. And the way I reworked it was we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our leisure choices have become unhealthy and self-destructive. So getting people a chance to look at the impact that their addiction has had on their leisure and recreational choices, where one person may have been going to a yoga class to relieve stress is now going to the bar and getting hammered to relieve stress. And
Right.
then it goes through discovering how healthy leisure can help restore you and support your recovery. Now, it's a really important piece. I tell people that when they leave treatment, they're going to have appointments and meetings and things like that. And I tell them what they do in between those times is the most important time, because
Mhm.
they need to have some kind of a plan of things that they're going to do that are not only going to fill time, but they're also going to give them something to look forward to doing during their day and give them some joy and some contentment, some happiness.
Let me ask you a question. Historically, some people had said have taken the position that exercise and eating right are lifestyle issues that are really they're outside issues. They're
Mm-hmm.
not directly related to addiction recovery treatment. What's your take on that?
Well, I understand the issue about outside issues, but they couldn't be more wrong because I think they're so closely related. You have to be healthy in order to be happy.
Okay.
In terms of the leisure piece, I get a lot of feedback from my patients saying that they never had a chance to really talk about this issue in groups or in meetings because nobody brings it up. But it's such
Mhm.
an important topic to bring up.
And let me ask you, these days you work, and so the audience understands, you work at Conifer Park. You've been there 30 years, so you
30
have
May
just a
1st.
little bit of experience in this field. And so you're the perfect person to ask. One of the things that you recommended to me and you recommend to other people is not to isolate.
Right.
Given what's going on in the world today in the pandemic, how do you advise your patients that are inpatient now on how to live sober and incorporate leisure into their recovery when they get out?
Well, I tell them the same thing, to still not isolate, just to be more creative in how we connect with other people. Like you and I are connecting through Skype. We can't meet person to person right now, and people can't go out to a meeting right now. So there's online meetings and there's phone and there's other ways to connect with people. And I implore them to stay connected. And the recovery community is really putting themselves out there on Facebook, and I see constant Zoom meetings that are happening and other ways that people connect. So the recovery community is really reaching out to people.
Mhm. And in the longer term, are there any specific? Let's go back to what you see on Zoom meetings, and other kind of interactive meetings or workouts online. Are there any that you specifically recommend?
Well, it depends on what they want to do. If somebody wants to work out and they can't go to the gym, they can go on YouTube. They can go on your website, most certainly, and get some ideas of things to do. They can
Mhm.
also, I have a friend of mine, a Facebook friend, who's just posting challenges on YouTube, physical challenges. And so we do them. They're 3 minutes long, and we engage that way.
Mhm. I'll tell you, it's funny. Rob Archuleta of Addict to Athlete in Pueblo, Colorado, posted earlier his plunger workout.
That's
It's hilarious. And actually, it's a good idea. It's a pretty good workout using the
I bet
plunger.
it is.
So, you know, it's
We're
funny
gonna need it with
how,
all the toilet paper we got going on.
what's that? Say it again?
We're gonna need it with all the toilet paper we got
Oh,
going
tell
on.
me about it. You're right about that. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. So, what advice, let's say, talk about people who are coming out of an inpatient setting like Conifer Park. What's the advice that you're giving them in the short term and then in the longer term?
Well, in the short term, first and foremost, is to find ways to stay connected. That's the most important thing. But then identifying things that they can do while they're at home. Simple things like getting into reading a book, painting a picture, spending more time with their dog, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I give them a list. I have a list of like 150 things to do. Say, here's some ideas. I can't give them the answers, unfortunately.
You can't
But
make them do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you give them that list. So let's talk about your book because I wanted to have you on because I think it's a great time for people to reflect inward, to really, really journal and inventory about who they are and
Mhm.
how they want to live and how they plan to live in these challenging times. So, if people were to purchase your book, what can they expect as they go through? I think it's not where you read from cover to cover. It's an interactive book and more of a workbook setting where you're asked questions and asked to give answers and inventory. So I'll shut up now. And since you wrote it, why don't you explain to the audience what the book's about and what they can expect?
Well, you're exactly right. It is a workbook. So there are worksheets with each step that people can work through and gain some insight into the impact that their addiction has on their leisure. They can get some insight into what their current leisure interests are. They can start to make some plans for future leisure. And I really highly recommend that people start to make some of those plans because during this dark time of isolation, we need something positive to look forward to doing. So I
Mhm.
encourage people to make that leisure bucket list. So when we're able to go out into the world, what is it you want to do most, and make plans to do that.
And you have a lot of time on your hands, but these days people have a lot of time on their hands to do that, whereas in the past maybe they didn't.
Right.
Correct? No, it's a
Yep.
great time to do it. And you're a certified recreation therapist. What are the scientific? There are people, and you're not one of them. I'm not one of them. And the 80,000 people who are on this Facebook page for Spiritual Adrenaline certainly aren't part of this community. But there are people out there who say exercise and that kind of a healthy lifestyle isn't again directly related to addiction recovery. So, what have you seen over the 30 years of science, if you will? How does it impact people psychologically who are in recovery? I mean, do you have any clients that you can talk about who really benefited from learning to integrate this healthy lifestyle into their new recovery in their world?
Well, there's been plenty of patients who have really benefited from getting back into exercise. I think there's one you're familiar with who's out in Rochester who's going into bodybuilding now.
Yes,
Because
he is.
he
Men,
went to
he's
body.
competing in my men's physique.
So
He looks great, doesn't he?
he does. He looks fabulous. But we also know that exercise produces endorphins and it helps people to feel good. And whenever I do like a circuit training class or an exercise class, the
I
first response,
tried
can we do that again? Can we do it again tomorrow? I want to do it. I want to do it every day because it makes them feel so good.
it. I took your circuit training class, and I had said to you, "What? This is not a real gym. You ain't got no weights here." And you took me around the circuit, and I was like, "Okay, humble." One of the things that makes addiction recovery work is you get the ego in check.
Yep, that's
So you busted my ego right down. So that's great. So where if people are interested in picking up a copy of your book, where can they get it?
you can get it at Amazon.com, or you
Mm-hmm.
can also find me on Facebook at 12 Steps to Sober Leisure.
Just hold up the cover so they can recognize it. This is Abby Bernard. I highly recommend it. And it gets to put some time into your mindset and your future. Now is the time to do it. You can download the book. I think it's available in Spanish as
Yes.
well. Abby, awesome. And it's a process. We've talked about the fact that when I was in active addiction, for me to celebrate something good or to get over something bad, that was like the go-to was an 8 ball from my Coke dealer, right? And so now I go for a hike, I go to the Grand Canyon, I'll go to Mount Everest in Nepal, or I used to do those things when we could travel. And
Right.
we will again. I have faith. But the point is it's a process of changing the brain, the
Mhm.
wiring of the brain, and
100.
how we reward ourselves.
Yep.
So for people out there who've never tried this, what's your message to them about how long it takes to start to see the changes and what they need to expect as they go down that new path?
Well, they can start seeing changes in day one. Like that first workout is going to provide that feel good feeling. But generally, like for fitness, it's 3 months to get it, 2 weeks. It's something you have to really keep. Gonna make. You got to keep doing it.
Mhm. Awesome. And your book will give them a guide and a way to get started. So, Abby, thank you so much again. For me personally, I thank you, but also for sharing your wisdom and your 30 years of experience as a certified recreational therapist and someone who really cares about their patients and to see them do well in the long term. If you could hold the book up one more time, it's the 12 Steps of Sober Leisure. You can get it in English and Spanish on Amazon, or you can check out Abby's Facebook page as well and get a copy there. Abby, thank you so much. I wish you and your family and everyone you're working with up at Conifer Park all the best during these difficult days.
Thank you. Same here.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.